Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the call this morning. Welcome to the Fusion 5 webinar for planning as a utility. We've got a couple of guest speakers on today, which I'll introduce. We really appreciate you finding the time to join. I know everybody's really busy. So we do appreciate you sparing that time to join. The call should take around 45 to 50 minutes. Most of that will be taken up with Rodney and Michael speaking, and I'll cover the introductions and agenda in a minute. But again, really appreciate you finding time to join the webinar today. So my name is Steve Woodward. I'm a sales lead at Fusion 5. I've been at Fusion 5 for about 5 months now, previously IBM. I actually work within the CPM data and analytics team at Fusion 5. And that's one of the 5 pillars within the Fusion 5 business. Previously, people would have known that business as Mindful, which had been going successfully for many years, and then was acquired by Fusion 5 around about 11 months ago, the back end of 2020. And obviously that time has gone really quickly. Our other speakers today is Michael Mackey. Michael is obviously he came through the business from Mindful. He was a senior member of the Mindful team for many years, working with Belinda, and within Fusion 5, Michael is now the CTO of the CPM data and analytics pillar. He has over 20 years experience with planning analytics, and he's a black belt, so he's as good as it gets when it comes to listening to Michael around IBM Planning and Analytics. And we're really fortunate today to have Rodney Deacon on the call as CFO for Residential Development Division within Fletcher Business. And we really appreciate Rodney sparing his time to join today. He's a very busy man. He's obviously got a wealth of experience at Fletcher's. He's been there about 5 years, and prior to that, Rodney was actually at Genesis Energy. So it should be great listening to Rodney and talking through the experience he's had at Fletcher's. So I'll just very quickly cover off the agenda. So we've covered off the introductions. As we said, Michael will run through, give you a quick snippet, high-level view of the IBM Planning and Analytics, and run through some of the capabilities and screens. And then Michael will hand over to Rodney, who will, as we said, go through a bit of information around his experience and journey and what they've done at Fletcher Residential. And then at the end, we'll gather up hopefully some questions and cover off a Q&A. So if you have any questions for Rodney or Michael, if you could put them in the chat options on the toolbar, which probably is up in your top right of your screen, that would be great. If you could put them into that chat bar, we'll gather them up to cover off. At the end, we should have around about 10 minutes for that. As again, really appreciate you finding the time. You will all be on mute during the call, and as I said, please put the questions into the chat. So at this point, I'll hand over to Michael, and he'll take through the next part of the agenda.
All right, so today I'm going to talk to you around the IBM Planning Analytics with Watson platform. Really, this is a planning platform. It can be used for budgeting, forecasting, and also has operational applications as well. Any types of planning that you can imagine, it's really been applied to. And also, basically just around analyzing data as well, which I'll take you through some of the capabilities today. So I thought I'd start by just talking through some of the challenges that organizations have and that planning analytics helps resolve. One of the key ones that we see is just around standardization. We quite often find that across the business, the planning process is done differently in different departments, and there's not necessarily integration between the different plans. So some of the operational teams, they might be doing supply planning, they might be doing sales forecasting, but that's not actually connected to the financial planning process. So what IBM Planning Analytics helps you do is bring all of that information together and using some of those insights in the business to drive the financial plans as well, because everything has a cost and timing implication. And there's a lot of wasted time involved with people doing repeating the same tasks, getting the same data from sources, and having data in different formats which don't talk to each other. Data integrity and transparency is a key thing. So obviously, if you are planning, maybe you're planning in a system like Excel and you've developed a budget template around that, can be quite difficult to trace some of the numbers back to the source, and just really drill down and just start to understand some of the questions that you have around the data. So that's quite a key aspect that a platform like Planning Analytics brings as well. Collaboration is really important. So obviously you do want those insights from the front lines in the business. You do want the people who are involved with talking to clients around sales opportunities, for example, actually capturing the information in the forecasting. On the forecasting side of things, you do want the different department heads who are responsible for specific budgets being able to enter that information directly, just to create efficiencies and just to help to make sure that the data is as accurate as possible. So that collaboration piece is quite a key aspect of what we do with IBM Planning Analytics. And the other areas are really just around, I don't know if anyone's run a planning process which involves sending out spreadsheets to quite a few users. They get that information back, they have to consolidate the information. They've found that some users have added columns and they've validated some formulas in the template. And there's quite a bit of time that's taken through verifying that the data is correct. I guess what we find is a better solution is just to basically test it once and make sure everything's right, and not having to go through that manual process each time, because the reality is, with the world the way it is, with macroeconomic factors like COVID and so forth, people are going to need to plan continuously as well, because it's just a very changing landscape. You may go into lockdowns, things may happen in different export markets, and you need to be able to react and understand where you're at with your financials at any point in time. As well as addressing those concerns or challenges that we talked about around financial and operational alignment, being able to collaborate and make more confident decisions, and adding features like having an automated solution that just has the data ready when you need it, and something flexible which grows with you. There are a set of capabilities that are available within the IBM Planning Analytics platform, which not only allow you to look back and understand what's happened in your organization from a reporting perspective, but also being able to analyze the data, query things, drill down, answer any questions that you may have, or people in the business may be asking of you. All of that capability is covered off in the platform. It essentially inherits some of that data from the source system, and you extrapolate out that for planning. But the key advantage of IBM Planning Analytics is really around this modeling space. Being able to run analytics and get insights into why something happened. Being able to extrapolate out data and know what the impact is on the bottom line if these changes, if the trends and the factors that are influencing performance continue. Being able to basically model based on drivers, also predictive modeling's an option now within the platform, to understand what the future looks like, and being able to consider different scenarios, both personal scenarios and scenarios which are shared across the organisation, which allow you to work out what's the best situation, what's the best plan for the organisation, and pessimistic scenarios as well. What's the worst that can happen too? So the platform covers off those capabilities, and with those brings a lot of there's huge business value in just having good information to support those decisions, rather than just saying, oh yeah, I think we should do this. Actually having the more data-driven decisions, and that can bring a lot of competitive advantage as well. So if we look at the IBM Planning Analytics with Watson platform, really what we do is we integrate with other source systems. So we're in the business of inheriting data, not replicating it, but essentially integrating with your ERP solution. It doesn't matter if you're running SAP, Oracle, maybe Microsoft Dynamics as well. We essentially can integrate it with it and bring in information that's used for planning and forecasting. We can also integrate with other sources, such as your human capital management system. We can bring in payroll data and have that extrapolated out for planning purposes. Integrate with CRM solutions, so you can look at customer profitability, or you can bring that information into your sales forecasting processes, and any other solutions that you have in the organization as well. Maybe you have a separate billing system, maybe you have another data warehouse which has some driver information that you want to model based off. And we integrate with those systems, and once that information is available in IBM Planning Analytics, we've got the capability to deploy web-based planning applications. It's all available through a single interface now in IBM Planning Analytics. Yeah, every user has the ability to develop reports and dashboards. So obviously you can develop some standard reports and dashboards for the business, and I think Rodney's going to take you through some of the ones that they've built next. But yeah, you can develop those and build those out over time as well. You're not really constrained to how you want to look at the information. A lot of our clients still want to work in Excel, so you've got that option available too. But you're working in Excel in a more controlled way. So you've got the ability to leverage the IBM Planning Analytics with Watson data in Excel, but not have that data stored in Excel, and use that to build out report packs, and you can combine with other data as well. And then you've got flexible reporting and self-help analytics, and I talked about the scenario modeling and the capability to basically model based off business drivers and the latest advancements in technology around predictive forecasting and so forth. In terms of coverage, I guess the great thing about IBM Planning Analytics with Watson is you can develop a lot of applications. It's very common for our clients to have workforce planning applications, very common for them to model their financials, come up with a consolidated P&L balance sheet forecast, very common to do KPI reporting through the platform as well. But the key point I wanted to make here is it enables you to integrate, and then what you're doing over here from a workforce planning perspective is actually fed into your financial plan. It's not a separate activity. So the reason why this is important is everything has a cost implication. So if you want to employ 100 new people or whatever it is, if you want to see what the impact is of attrition on the bottom line and so forth, you're doing all this modeling over here. You might also allocate people to projects. You might do some modeling just around time as well, and that's feeding into your financial plan. Similarly, if people are doing sales forecasting, again, that doesn't have to be a separate activity. People are entering the numbers and they're instantly available in the financial model. So you know what your revenue is looking at, and you might have a costing model in behind that. And some of our clients have very comprehensive models, which they do everything from asset maintenance modelling through to modelling, their plants with capacity constraints and things like that, depending on what industry you're in, promotional planning, and integrating that with the financials as well. And these are quite often solutions which are kind of pioneered by finance as well. This is an interesting quote from Gardner, where it basically just points out that the finance teams are uniquely positioned to basically support the business because everything has a cost implication, and because obviously you want more data behind your decisions. They really can play the finance teams can play quite a role in making sure that you've got the best information available to support those decisions, which have finance outcomes as well, as you'll all know. Okay, just before we get into Rodney's presentation, I was just going to share a few slides just to give you the flavour for what it looks like if you haven't seen IBM Planning Analytics before. We are going to do a demo and a follow-up session, but I really just wanted to share, just a few of these key slides and some of the capabilities here. This is an example of a dashboard which can easily be built in Planning Analytics. Here you can see that it's a dashboard, but I can actually run that for each area of my business. So I'm looking at the customer experience area. I don't know if you'll see that on the screen, but it's quite small. But I could roll that up and I could run that for Fusion 5 if I wanted to see the consolidated view. I've got information in my dashboard which just allows me to monitor my performance. So, am I on track in terms of my P&L or EBIT number? What's my personnel expenditure looking like? I've got the ability to bring all of the information that I want to see in this dashboard together and reuse this dashboard throughout the organization, or I can also build specific dashboards for different areas as well. And when I say build, really it's just a case of authoring the dashboards, getting them the way you like. The users have the capability to develop these out as well. And then I can interact with them, I can interact with the charts and so forth. And I've also got the ability to actually visualize the information in different ways. So if you look on the right-hand side, I've got a scorecard. So I've got the ability to actually tie the financial metrics in the dashboards to my business objectives as well. So I can understand performance is quite a high level as well as a lower level as I go through. In terms of modeling different business drivers and assumptions, I guess this is really what the IBM Planning Analytics platform is great at. We talked about integrated planning. Here I've just shown some workforce assumptions, which are driving my workforce planning model. Here we're looking at the leave accrual based on history. We're looking at attrition assumptions. We're looking at salary and bonus increase assumptions as well. And that they're driving my financials. On the right-hand side, I've got just an example of the what-if capability as well. Here I've got my organization. I'm an international company. I've got my sales units coming in here. I've decided, okay, yep, I'm going to consider a merger. I can actually model the impact of that and offset that against my base plan and look at what that means for the business as well. Can you just advance the next slide, please, Steve? Thank you. And the reporting is very flexible. I can answer my own questions. Here in this view, I'm looking at my information broken down by my GL accounts. It's all based on pivot table type logic where I can drag cost center, for example, bring that down the sides, and I can see my information in different ways. So, I can start off with a report that looks like this, and I can manipulate that just to answer whatever questions I want. So that's quite a key aspect of the platform. And then finally, really what they've done with IBM Planning Analytics and what they continue to do is to bring in new capabilities which really help with the user experience and just help you extrapolate out data easier. So they brought in this predictive forecasting capability about a year ago, which basically enables you to look at the history and just have that information extrapolated out. And then you've got metrics around, accuracy and so forth, which are associated with that. But yeah, it actually goes through algorithms and it works out, okay, based on history, what's the most likely forecast, for example. You've got the ability to extrapolate out data, based on growth percentages or base information. Or if you look at this example, I've just got a 10-year plan, and I've got research and development costs, for example. I've just decided, yep, we want to increase that by 20% across the organisation, for the next X number of years. I can just enter that number at quite a high level and cascade that down as well. So you've got functionality like that in the platform. And then natural language processing. So I think you can even talk to it these days, but you can say select travel. You can make spelling mistakes and it can still bring up the right results as well. And the expirations or the reports that you're looking at actually change to match what you've selected there. So that's quite a neat feature too. But that's really what I wanted to share today. If you have any questions, just put them through the chat, and I'll just hand over to Rodney now to talk about what they're doing at Fletcher Building.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you, Steve, and good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Hopefully, I can just gain control of the slides from Steve, or Steve can forward them on to for me, and get into some real-life examples of using this tool. Okay, let me have a go at that. As Steve mentioned, I'm the CFO for the Residential Development Division for Fletcher Building. We're one of six divisions of Fletcher Building's overall business. And to give you some context, we're one of the largest home builders and developers in New Zealand. We build approximately 1,000 homes a year and sell them through our own sales force. We also purchase land and master plan large residential subdivisions, including a range of house topologies, apartments, and now retirement villages. We need to do a lot of planning and financial modelling of all of these developments. So that's an important facet of where we use the IBM Planning Analytics tools. We also develop industrial lands, and we manage more than 500 sites that's occupied by Fletcher Building's various businesses through building materials, manufacturing, and construction. We also operate an off-site manufacturing plant producing panelised homes that's been stood up in the last 2 years. We currently supply panelised homes for our Fletcher Living business, but are looking to extend that externally. So that's a bit more like a manufacturing business for us. We have a clear mandate to grow our divisional operations and our earnings. At the moment, we've got annualised revenue of around $750 million and earnings before interest and tax, EBIT, of about 150 million. So highly profitable, and as you can see there, we've had a good period of growth in terms of number of houses we've sold over the last 7 or 8 years, but we've got a mandate to grow that further. 5 years ago, we implemented a new ERP system, JD Edwards, and on the back of that, we decided that we needed a new analytics and reporting tool to help us with analysing and collating, reporting all the data that was coming out of JD Edwards. We did a pretty thorough business case and arrived at using the IBM Planning Analytics tool, which we call TM1, to deliver really what we needed for our business. Now, some of those things include the regular reporting of both operational and financial metrics. We do that on both weekly but monthly, semi-annual basis. It enables us to have continuous live forecasts for our branches, of which we've got 4, our business units, and the divisional financial results as a whole. And that live or 24/7 access is really important. There's no one person that's holding all of the key spreadsheets or the key access to those numbers. A really important thing that TM1's been enabled us to do in our development business is create a financial feasibility model, which helps us to assess opportunities to build new subdivisions based on modelling out all of the costs and the revenue we get from selling the houses and the various units to get us to the point of understanding what we can pay for the land. This has been a step change for us and a really exciting aspect of what TM1 can deliver, and I'll talk a little bit about that a bit more. Finally, one really good thing that we have found using TM1 is it now creates a whole lot of reports for us, charts, data that we can use ourselves when we are reporting to management on a regular basis, in board papers and for strategy projects. So if I can turn to the next page, Steve. I still seem to not have the functionality myself. Excellent. I guess it goes without saying, once you put in a new ERP and then you look at doing a new analytics tool like this, it's a big change for the division. It was a change management piece. Previously, for a period of time after we implemented JDE, we had exported data from JDE into Excel and then manipulated the data as we saw fit in that manner. Clearly, that's not a sustainable way to operate if you want to have all that functionality that I've talked about and you want to have some integrity around your data and your reporting. So what we did is we really invested a whole lot of time in training people and a large number of people in using TM1. So we really wanted to embed TM1 into the culture of our business, which we think we've actually managed to do over the last 3 years. It's enabled us to get really widespread adoption across the core functions in a relatively short space of time. And we're now using we've got over 50 users on licenses out of a total headcount of around 250 people across all our operations in the division. So a really high take up and a really core to, I guess, the way that we manipulate and use data. We initially relied on just one FTE within the business to be, I guess, the center of our TM1 rollout and then management, and that includes the interaction with the likes of Mindful and now Fusion 5, all of the user acceptance testing and ongoing troubleshooting and problems. That's probably a key learning and something I'll come back to, but that was a lot of work sitting with just one person. I can change the slides. Sorry, Steve, are you there? We can just move the slide on. Here's 2 examples of reports that we get out of TM1. So on the left-hand side, we've got a weekly report that we do that gives us the level of conditional, unconditional, and then settled sales across our division. That's done by branches. You can see the branches across the top there and includes our apartments and retirement business. It gives us a really good and prompt way of seeing how we're tracking versus our annual goals each week. We also get to see some operational data down the bottom there of the amount of consents we've lodged and how well advanced those consents are across each of our branches, which gives us an idea of how well the buildings, the houses are being constructed. which is an important driver of when we get to sell them and settle. On the right-hand side, we've got your typical P&L there for the month of August across the whole division, and then year to date. Clearly, we're pretty keen on seeing how we match versus our forecast and against our budget for year to date. This is all pretty standard, I guess, but to get this level of detail and to get the integrity and the consistency in the way it's reported has been a step change for the business. Next slide. Just continuing on, I guess one of the issues we saw at the start was that we had JDE, which we considered to be one source of the truth, but it's taken us quite a while to get to the point where we have now considered TM1 to be one reporting of the truth. And that's because now every report that we do, every bit of analysis of our data really is undertaken in TM1 and then exported or used, in other reports. It's our the key source of all of our annual forecasting for earnings, for cash flow, for balance sheet. And as I mentioned before, it's now the key platform that we use for our feasibility modelling in the development division. That includes increasing some functionality coming up, which will enable us to look back and measure the actual performance of our developments versus a number of core metrics that we initially used to approve the development in the first place. Recently, we have committed to move to the second stage of our TM1 journey, which initially involves migrating from an on-premise hosting of the platform to the cloud. That's not an insignificant work in itself, but we're not done with that. We're also looking at creating a number of new customized reports that will be able to be linked to some BI tools, which means that we sort of automatically generate almost in real time through dashboards, etc., some monthly reporting that previously has been a big manual task, and that's been a big positive for us. We have probably about 20 developments, subdivisions ongoing at any one time. They each have a project control group meeting every month. So there's at least 20 reports that are being generated every month for all through the year, which we now are able to do, or will be able to do very shortly, generated through a BI tool and sucking the information out of TM1. We're also extending the functionality of our existing feasibility model. I mentioned the look back function, but we're also being able to roll out features that enable us to more accurately model industrial apartments, but also retirement villages. And through all of this, I guess the key thing is we're relying quite heavily on the team at Fusion 5 to help us. We don't have all of the capacity to be able to create those reports in-house, and so we do work really proactively with the team at Fusion 5 to help them make those things a reality. On the right there, you can just see another example of a report that we've done recently. So this is some of all the subdivisions we're currently working on. The revenue margin, branch margin and total margin that we report for each of those divisions. It's analysis like this that actually helps us track how individual developments are progressing versus the branch as a whole, and enables actually management to stay on top of things like pricing on a lot by lot and development by development basis. Next slide, Steve. I've got sort of two slides here on the benefits, some of the challenges. One of the massive benefits to us has been the consistency and accuracy of our reporting, which has increased significantly on the back of using TM1. We're now at a point where all of our reporting formats and information is standardized, and people now know what to look for and where to go and find it. That generally helps people just reduce time in finding the data they need. I spoke before about the whole team has access and visibility of the forecasts that we are working towards 24/7. We spend less time creating reports and more time on analysing the data, which is a big plus for management. And we have less concerns with the integrity of the reporting and have confidence in reporting some of those financial results to management. And it's sometimes a bit of a given that you should be able to trust the data, but when it's inconsistently reported, or you've got to actually spend time going back and looking at why the results are what they are, then I guess you're soaking up time that you could otherwise use by analysing the data a bit more properly. Some of the benefits that we have experienced unexpectedly when we started out with this project is we've been able to adapt TM1 to the business and division as it's grown, and some of the growth areas have already been, I guess, predicted by what some of the data and the forecasting that we've had in TM1 has shown us. Familiarity with what's possible has led to more features being added, which has actually benefited everybody using all of the modelling and the various reports. And some of the business metrics we now use to approve land acquisitions has been adapted to what TM1 provides us. So previously we used certain metrics like gross margin, but some of the IRR, investment rate of return, and other metrics that TM1 feasibility model generates has actually been adopted now by the business as the standard by which we have to meet to approve the acquisitions, which is quite helpful. But right here we can see another example of charts that TM1 will generate, helping us with our forecasting versus budget. That's volumes in one branch on the top, and then volumes by individual developments. And you can see we can get quite granular on some of this data, given we're really just sucking it all out of JDE and the amount of data we've got in there already. Oh, one too many. Some of the challenges we've experienced, we've certainly learned a lot on the way through. I think one of the big takeaways is finding people who have experience using TM1 in the market, particularly the New Zealand market, is extremely difficult. It seems to be a relatively small pool of good people. So if you've got somebody, you should do what you can to keep hold of them. Previously, we over-relied on one person internally to manage software updates, training, fixing bugs, the interaction with Fusion 5, and we've since changed that approach. I think there is a risk that you can have a key person, key person risk around managing all of those customized reports. And so when they or if they leave, then you can be a little bit hampered by the time it takes to actually find out how all of those reports work. So I think that's definitely something to bear in mind. You need to really train people well and embed the use of TM1 in the culture, and we've been able to do that quite successfully, which I think has really benefited the business now. So it is really seen as a core tool in what we're doing. And obviously having a strong external partner is pretty key. We have been with Mindful / Fusion 5 now for probably the best part of 4 years through the journey. And we have really stepped up our use of their tailored project teams. It massively helps us with our resourcing capacity issues, but also removing that key person risk I talked about. Enables us to have the capacity to have a number of projects on the go at any one time. And I guess the other thing is we don't have to have permanent headcount costs sitting in the business whilst we're doing these bespoke projects and we get the reporting up and underway. And with that pretty much brings to a close, I guess, the formal comments I was going to make. I'm more than happy to take any questions from you in the chat. I'll hand back to Steve and Michael to help with moderating that.
Thanks, Rodney. Really appreciate that. That was great insights, actually. So thanks for that, and an opportunity just to say thanks as well. The ongoing support. It's been a long-standing relationship now with Mindful and obviously Fusion 5, and we really appreciate you finding the time to give all the attendees the insights from a Fletcher's point of view. So thanks for that, and thanks, Michael. As Rodney said, I'll just move on the slide. If you've got any questions, we have got just a few minutes left. If you could put it in the chat, which is on one of the options on the toolbar on the right, which would be great. If any questions for Rodney or Michael. And I've actually, just while we're waiting, in case anybody's got a question, I've got a question, Rodney. You mentioned there the last point around embedding the use of the tools into the culture of the business. How did you actually go about that? Because I know, speaking to some of the other clients we have, that has been and still is a challenge for a lot of other customers as well.
Yeah, so what we did is we set up a core person whose job it is to be a central contact for around TM1, but essentially we made sure that everybody had a really good period of training, and actually we sort of trained some people to be super users, I guess, helped us with a lot of the UAT, and then they ended up being the champions of the product within the business. And so we had them, or have them, spread around the various parts of the business, and they end up being the ones that really get to know the product well and use it a lot, but they also end up doing a little bit of training within their own teams. And so it kind of spreads itself out amongst the organization. You get these super users, I guess. You've got one person whose core job is orientated around TM1, but they can't be everywhere the whole time. We also have I guess regular updates, and we regularly assess some of the assumptions that are built into the feasibility model. So with that, there's sort of regular news flow out to the teams about things that are changing. And to be honest, it's just a buy-in by the management as well, that this is a tool that's going to deliver us what we want. So we're all going to use that. We're all going to talk to it. So all of you in the team that's providing us with information, you have to use it, because that's what we're going to do, and that's what we're going to use. So that's ultimately worked pretty well, and the CEO of the team and the other members of the SLT are all fluently in using TM1 a lot and know it well, so that helps as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and obviously, Rodney, that proves your point, as you say, when you look at the next phase and looking to extend out the use of the platform. Clearly, that's worked. So you've been very successful at that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Still got no other questions coming through. I've got a question for you. Go on,
Michael.
Michael. Sorry, Michael.
Questions. I can see a few.
Yeah.
Apologies,
I'll
guys.
read them out if you like.
Go on, Michael. Carry on.
So I mean, there's a question just around how do you determine what reporting is done via your BI tools versus reporting developed directly in TM1? I mean, did you want to take that one, Rodney? Yeah,
I'll talk to that. So that's from David Williams. Yeah, I guess, as I mentioned there, we see TM1 for our division as the one area that we're going to use for all of our reporting. So after the data goes into JDE, we have a couple of other for panelization. We're actually using D365, but ultimately TM1 is where all of our reporting goes to. So we're just using the BI tools really as a dashboard, and as more a helpful way to help us automate some of the reports that we've previously had that are sucking information in from various sources. So within Fletcher Building, there's a health and safety platform. In the reports that we do monthly for the development project control group meetings, it pulls out, and typically it's just been a pasted table of the health and safety performance. Well, the BI tool we're using, which is Power BI, is going to suck that information in from that reporting tool, and then it's going to suck in the financial data, the budgeting data from TM1. So at this point in time, TM1 is everything that's operational and financial that we currently use, and the BI tools is more about dashboards and helping us with kind of the display of the data, I guess, and the functionality to use it on a more automated basis.
And I guess just one of the other points is if you have people who need to contribute to the plans, that's a really good use case for TM1. If you've got broader enterprise reporting requirements like Rodney started talking about, Power BI, you can bring the information into there as well. There's another question here just around is your model a rolling model?
Yes, 100%. So what we do, so the basis of our financial forecasting is these feasibility models. So if you think about it, every development that we go to do, we have a model that models out when we're going to take houses to profit, you know, how long it takes to build them, where we're going to build them, all of the civil work, and then all of the actual build construction. And then there's a point in time when they're going to be taken to profit. So what we do is we have, I don't know, at any given time, we might have 30, 40 of those in the pipeline, some of which we've committed to already, some of which, and we've started, some of which we're not going to start yet. We effectively just layer all of those feasibilities upon each other. We have a rolling assumption around overheads and costs like that, and then we put that all into TM1, and that can build out for us not just the current financial year, but future financial years. And any given time, we can, in theory, do or pull down the data to enable us to do a 12-month rolling forecast on earnings. So yep, it's all of that functionality there, and that's useful as well. The more we get into TM1, and the less we're relying on just, I guess, any data or forecast that we might have in spreadsheets outside of it, absolutely the better quality our forecasting becomes.
Okay, another question came through just around whether you're using Planning Analytics Workspace or have identified a use case for that. Probably from an existing client, yeah.
So using Planning Analytics Workspace or identify a use case, you might have to explain to me exactly what that means, Michael.
Yeah, so currently, I think most of what you do, Rodney, is using the web-based interfaces for that. Planning Analytics Workspace is the newer web-based interface that was introduced a few years back, I guess now. Yeah, so that's what the question is talking to.
So you're right. I think I'm right in saying that that's what we're using. As I said, we're going to move to the web-based, we're going to move to a cloud-based product rather than on-premise. I think that's going to also update just what the user interface looks for us. The other thing I should mention is most of what I talked to was talking about using custom-made reporting that we've built in-house, and this probably answers a little bit to one of the questions further down about having in-house developers. Initially, the person we had did a lot of the in-house, although the creation of those custom reports in-house and sort of developed that ourselves. Latterly, we've actually farmed that out to Fusion 5 because it just helps us to do more over a shorter space of time. But what we do have the capability to do as well, and we have a number of the super users doing, is use what we could sort of call the cubes, which is basically all of the data and creating customized inquiries. It's effectively like a data query where we can pull down all of any of the data and create our own customized set of data or report for that point in time. It's not necessarily a report we'll keep on using, but if we just have a certain query, we'll obviously use that to our advantage. And so we do have a number of people in-house that regularly use that functionality to get the data or the reporting that we need.
Okay, there's just two more questions here that I think we've got enough time just to cover them off quickly.
Yeah, carry on, Michael.
Yep. Again, for you, Rodney, what advice can you impart to leaders seeking funding for such a project?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Initially, we did the business case on a certain number of users and the ability to produce and I guess improve processes and obviously reporting. Sometimes it's hard to put a positive benefit, well, I wouldn't say cost, but positive benefit revenue on that. I guess what I would say is you've got to map out how many people you think you're going to need to use it. You've got to include probably some cost for working with a partner like Fusion 5, but you've got to accept that this isn't necessarily going to improve your top line and revenue so easily. It's going to enable you probably to get work and get jobs and get business you didn't get before, but it's quite hard to see that at the beginning. And so there's a little bit of just having to believe that this is going to work. when you're actually modeling it. I think it's a matter of just saying, look, if we get this amount of business, it'll pay us back over a certain amount of time. And if I went back and looked at that business case, I would have thought TM1 has probably paid us back 5 or 10-fold versus what we originally thought, just in terms of the amount of business we've won, the amount of time we've saved. If I looked at it one way, our business has expanded probably nearly 3 times the amount of earnings in the space that I've been there in 4 years, and our headcount and finance has only increased probably a third. So it's helping us reduce costs around just having teams of people doing reporting, even though our business and our number of operations have increased. So I would kind of look at it from that point of view, rather than trying to say it's actually just going to create a certain amount of revenue. There's a whole lot of intangible benefits that I see that's quite hard to put a price on initially when you're doing that business case.
Yeah, just one more here again for you, Rodney. Do you have any in-house developers within your super users?
So I guess I partly answered that before. The short answer is technically no developers, but we have people in the super users who are highly competent in using it now. So they can look at reports that we've created and maybe were created in the past, or with the help of TM1, and look at the back end and see what might be wrong with, if there's any issues with them, or how we might tweak and change them to slightly augment them. But no, we've really relied on having the developers mainly sit in the TM1 team. It comes back to that point before around having a bit of key man risk, but also saving a little bit of cost and putting some of that capacity back on Fusion 5.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have today.
I think so, yeah. Thanks, that was good. Thanks for picking the up, Michael, and answering all of them, Rodney. There was great feedback there. So thanks for everybody for putting those questions in. Just a last couple of things just to wrap up. Please bear in mind, and we'll be in touch with a replay of the event. We'll also be, as Michael I think referred to, we'll be running a live demo and Q&A webinar next month in October, and we'll also be reaching out to all our existing clients for the user group. I think it's planned now for November. If in between there's anything else you require, you want to know, need support, would like to actually have a live one-on-one demo, please reach out to myself. You can see the details on screen. I'm on LinkedIn, easy to connect. So is Michael. You can also reach out to Ben. And also, obviously, you can go to the Fusion 5 website, which is fusion5.co.nz. And there's a whole pile of information there within the CPM pillar. And we will also be holding the replay of the webinar there. So it's just up to me to say again, thanks to Michael for his presentation. That was great. And I say, if you want to know more, please connect in and we'll reach out for the webinar next month. But huge thanks to Rodney. I really appreciate your time, Rodney. It was great insights. It's always fantastic to hear the client experience. And again, thanks for your time. I know you're busy, so we really do appreciate you finding the time to come and do that. And, we value your customers always. And thanks everybody for attending. It was great. I know we've overrun by a few minutes, but I noticed pretty much everybody stayed on. So thanks for that. I know your time's valuable and you're very busy. And it was great you find time to attend, and hopefully you found that valuable. As I say, anything else you need, please do not hesitate to reach out, call or email. So thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate your time and have a good rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.